Hi students. So let's begin from where we have left in the last video, that is from para 3. So till now we have learned that the children got the grain, the big grain, and it was bought by a treasurer by, and then finally it reached to the king. So, and they finally came to know that that unusual thing is a grain, corn grain. The king was surprised and ordered the learned men to find out when and where such corn had grown. The learned men pondered again and searched in their books, but could find nothing about it. So they returned to the king and said, "We can give you no answer. There is nothing about it in our books. You will have to ask the peasants. Perhaps some of them may have heard from their fathers when and where grain grew to such a size." So I think it's very clear, because the king wants to know what is the history where this grain has come from, because it's very unusual. So he asked all the learned men, and they could not find in the books, nor they know any kind of history about it. So they suggested the king that they should go to the peasants. Peasants is either farmer, laborers, so that they could find out from their fathers or the older generation about these kind of grain. So the king gave orders that a very old peasant should be brought before him, and his servant found such a man and brought him to the king. Old and bent, ashy pale, toothless, he just managed, with the help of 2 crutches, to totter into the king's presence. So what happens is, they finally, on the advice of these learned men, king ordered that they should find the oldest peasant who know something, or who know the history about it. So they finally found a man whose condition has been described in this para, that he is ashy pale, means he's not that financially great person. So it shows in his face that he has worked, he has labored a lot. Old and bent little, aged one, toothless, and somehow with the 2 crutches. Crutches means Baisakhi. So 2 crutches to totter into the king's presence. Totter means walk unsteadily, means he's not walking properly, means very limping and very slowly. The king showed him the grain, but the old man could hardly see it. He took it, however, and felt it with his hands. The king questioned him, saying, "Can you tell us, old man, where such grain as this grew? Have you ever bought such corn or sown such in your fields?" So he asked the obvious question. So he took it. He said he didn't know initially, and then he took it, however, and touched it with his hands. And so the king asked, "Did you find him, or did you sow?" Means, did you put it? Did you cultivate this in your field? The old man was so deaf that he could hardly hear what the king said, and only understood with great difficulty. So the picture here describes about this first old man is that he is very old. He is hardly able to listen and understand, can't walk. With the help of 2 crutches, he pulled himself somehow before the king. So he has a problem of hearing as well, as you can see many old age people go through. He answered, "No, I never sowed nor reaped any like it in my fields, nor did I ever buy any such. When we bought corn, the grains were always as small as they are now, but you might ask my father. He may have heard where such grain grew." Little surprising. The picture that is described about this man is so old. I mean, he's so old that we cannot imagine that his father would be alive. But surprisingly, his father is alive, and he is suggesting the king and his men to inquire from his father. Let's find out. So the king sent for the old man's father. He was found and brought before the king. He came walking with one crutch. Little surprising. The son is way more older than the father, and he needed two crutches to come to before the king, whereas his father, that old man's father, he only needed one crutch. The king showed him the grain, and the old peasant, who was still able to see, took a good look at it. Can you compare? There is two contrasting view about it. One is the son is too old to even understand anything, to hear anything, but here the father is in a better physical medical condition. He could see, he could walk better than his son. Little questionable, isn't it? So, and the king asked him, "Can you tell us, old man, where corn like this used to grow? Have you ever bought any like it or sown in your fields?" Though the old man was rather hard of hearing, he could still hear better than his son had done. Just explained here. "No," he said, "I never sowed nor reaped any grain like this in this field. As to buying, I never bought any, for in any time money was not yet in use. Everyone grew his own corn, or where there was any need, we shared with one another." Please underline from here. As to buying, I never bought any, for in any time money was not yet in use. Everyone grew his own corn, and when there was any need, we shared with one another. So he said, "No, I don't know about this grain particularly, and neither did I buy, because we used to grow for ourselves, and if somebody needed, we used to help that person as well." So we never had this concept of buying the grains. It is just helping without the money.